Okay, we are at chapter 7. Last video we stopped at greenhouse gases warms the lower atmosphere. I want to emphasize one point again. So for greenhouse effect, there is two aspects. The first one is natural greenhouse gases. Natural greenhouse effect. This one is much needed. So without greenhouse gas in the atmosphere at all, at night, the Earth's temperature would drop so low, and then you and I and many other living things are not able to survive. So with the proper amount of greenhouse gases in the air, which is needed to make the Earth habitable. However, with human enhanced global warming, which means we put too much greenhouse gases, more than the natural amount, then we cause problems. Okay. So now I'm moving to next slide. Okay. Now we're looking at the function of mountains. Remember, the locals geographic structure impact the climate. So mountains interrupt flow of prevailing winds because the mountains stop there, right? Okay. So there's one event. You will see this one first on your quiz. This one is called rain shadow effect. I'm going to show you the diagram first. Okay, then go back. So you can see if you have a mountain here, and then the prevailing wind comes from the ocean, and then this part is full of moisture. But as the wind has to climb up with the elevation to pass through the mountain, so the temperature drop, so the water condense. So before the wind carrying the moisture passing through the mountain, so the moisture will drop, condense, so drop all the moisture in the air before they passing through the mountain. So when the prevailing wind passes through this mountain, the air is dry, hot and dry. And then when they dry, they not only say they can't give any precipitation, because they are dry, they also suck up the moisture in the land when they pass through. So the other side of the mountain is beautiful with a lot of precipitation, but on the other side, this one is desert. If you heard the Death Valley in California, it's because of rain shadow effect. So let's summarize it with the word. The rain shadow effect is a reduction of rainfall and loss of moisture from the landscape on the side of the mountains, facing away from the prevailing surface winds. We call the leeward slopes. Warm, moist air in onshore winds loses most of its moisture as rain and snow on the windward slopes of a mountain range. So most of the precipitation falls on the windward side of the mountain ranges, causing leeward deserts, such as the Death Valley. So everyone needed to be able to describe what is rain shadow effect. So this one is mountain structure impact the climate. And then besides mountain, also we can human-made mountain, such as cities. So this slide is also important. So cities create microclimates. So what this means? So cities have building materials that absorb and hold heat, such as bricks, concrete, and asphalt. Buildings that block wind flow, and motor vehicles, and the heating and the cooking systems of buildings that release large quantities of heat. and pollutants too, resulting in more haze and smoke, higher temperature, so making them as heat islands. So that means the heat islands had a higher temperature and lower wind speeds. So when you describe the microclimate of cities, don't stop here. Don't just say cities has a little bit higher temperature and then slower wind speed. You have to say then the surrounding countryside. So with the comparison, don't just mention one part has more than what? So finish your sentence. It's more than the surrounding areas. Okay. Now we are going to look at section 2. Since section 1, we have described the climate and then the factors impact climate. So now we see how the climate decide what kind of biomes under that climate condition. Okay. The concept is differences in average annual precipitation and temperature lead to the formation of tropical, temperate, and cold deserts, grasslands, and forests, and largely determined their locations. Remember, when we mention climate, you're looking at 2 factors. One is annual precipitation and then temperature, these 2 things. So you have a tropical, you have a temperate, and then you have a cold area. So and each level has 3 biomes. So you have desert, grassland, and forests. So altogether, we're going to quickly go through 9 land biomes. Okay. So major biomes. So those are the large land regions with certain types of climate and dominant plant life. And then over the surface of the area of the earth, the biomes are not uniform, evenly distributed. They like mosaic patches with different parts. Okay. And then they change with latitude. So the equator keep going. And then in the same location, change with the elevation. The higher of the mountain you go, and then the different biomes you will observe. So this one, this diagram, you don't have to memorize, but this one is a great overview, give you the perspective where those biomes are. Okay, you can see those 3 locations, the 3 band, tropical, temperate, and then this is the cold area. So every part has 3 biomes, forest, 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 and then grassland, 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 and then you have desert, desert, and desert. Okay, so 9 altogether, roughly. So one more thing you needed to know, remember, is during different latitude. Let's go back again. So you from lower latitude, higher, and then higher. So this one would be equivalent, like you climbing a mountain. So the elevation, equivalent. At the bottom of the mountain, you see tropical species, and then you go higher, you go to deciduous, and then you go higher, you see the polar area climate with the conifer forest and with the tundra. And then above is the snow. So remember, the latitude and elevation resemble each other. So this diagram also, you don't have to memorize the pattern, but shows you the biomes on land are not evenly distributed. They are like mosaic patches. And then different areas determined by the unique climate they have, determine their unique biomes. So now we're going to quickly run through the 9 biomes. Okay. So first we look at the desert. The desert, the main character is their annual precipitation is low. So keep that in mind. So no matter your desert is in the tropical area or in the temperate area or in the cold area, the typical thing is they are low precipitation. And then we also mention that desert area they are fragile ecosystems. When we say fragile, what does this mean? So this means for the desert area, they already have a very low biodiversity. They already have a very slow nutrient cycling. Everything's just slow. So if you damage any part, they won't be able to cover that section because you only have a few species. If you take one way, 2 or 3, and then the left is very hard to survive, to balance, because their original low biodiversity and slowed nutrient cycling cause the desert area are fragile ecosystems. Okay. So look at this one. So this one is a tropical desert in Morocco. So again, the bottom you see the precipitation is really low. But since this one is in tropical area, so the temperature all year round is high. And then when you move it to temperate desert, so such as in California, if you ever travel to Arizona area, you will see saguaro cactus. You driving, you will see that. So this one, again, very little annual precipitation. But since this one is in temperate area, so you have a seasons temperature change. When we move to cold area, cold desert, like this one in Mongolia, Gobi Desert, so again, very little precipitation, but the temperature in the winter drop really, really low, right? So those are the 3 desert. Common thing is the low precipitation. Okay. Now we got to see there is living things in desert, right? So what kind of adaptations they have developed to cause them to survive that particular environment. So some plants have no leaves. You see that cactus, no leaves, right? They open their pores only at night to take up CO2. So they must have a storage somewhere, and then they later can use for photosynthesis. And then they put their root really deep down to catch some water left there. And then some animals are small, so they easily to find a place to hide in the cooler area, or they can burrow in. And then they drink a lot of water whenever it's available. And then lastly, they have a thick fur. Sounds very strange, but those thick fur would help them to insulate the heat or the cold, both ways. So the thick fur, okay? And then we're going to look at grasslands. So remember, grasslands also you have 3, in tropical, and then temperate, and then cold area. So grasslands occurs in interior continents. They're not near the water, near ocean. So they are too moist to be called desert, but also they are too dry for trees to grow. So they have 3 main types in the tropical area, in the temperate area, and then in the cold area. When they are in the cold area, they are called Arctic tundra. Okay, so let's quickly look at that. So savanna. So this one is a tropical grassland, and then since they are tropical, so they're year-round warm. But you can see the precipitation gets much more. And then just picture they have those scattered trees because they don't have enough water for a forest to grow. And then in savanna, they have scattered clumps of trees. This biome usually has warm temperatures year-round and alternating dry and wet season. So for tropical savannas in East Africa are home to grazing, primarily grass-eating animals, and browsing, twig and leaf nibbling animals and their predators. So make sure you also understand the difference between grazing animals and browsing animals. Okay. And then you have a priory. This one is a temperate grassland. It's very beautiful. So this one, they have a temperature change year round and also have a much more precipitation compared with the desert. So this part of the grassland, this slide, my time is almost up. So I'm going to stop here and then start this one on my part 3. Okay, thank you again for watching.